Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the TED Show. Super excited to have my friend, the one and only David Brown, on the show. He is a broker beyond home real estate. And you can look at his website, which is really cool, beyondhomerealestate.homes. He's here to talk about this new housing market, buying and selling strategies. We're going to learn all about that because that's what everybody wants to know, I believe, right now. So welcome to the show, David. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
I am great today. Thank you. I'm excited. I've been wanting to do this. We've been planning to do this. I think you have a lot of insight, and let's get rolling. So I told you before we went live that the audience loves a little bit of an origin story. So tell us a little 411 on David Brown.
I'll keep it as short as possible. I am a military brat, so I was born overseas. I was born in Belgium, and my first languages exposed to were English, French, and German, and
Wow.
Dutch,
Wow.
which I haven't learned Dutch, so we'll go there. I got French a little bit, so we can work things out. But I also then we moved back here and everything, and I really got into real estate right after high school. I took the class and fortunately didn't pass because of just being young and silly and wasn't paying attention. But now, fast forward, I moved here after many years in real estate law as a legal assistant and compliance manager. I took on and started my career in real estate as an agent, and now I own my own brokerage as of last year. We actually officially hit our first year in March.
Congratulations. Question, I love the compliance background. Has that been helpful in having your brokerage? Because I think a lot of us, it's lenders too, in this world, compliance is that petty little thing we have to try to figure out how to deal with, but we don't really all do so wonderfully. But it's really important.
Yes, I find it very helpful because it helps me when I'm working and trying to stay within the guidelines for Florida law and everything else in between because we know there's a bajillion laws for us. So it kind of helped me start my business, and it really helped me know what to have in line and be ready for opening the doors and not having to like run backwards. So it saved me a lot of time.
So let's talk about opening your own business. You passed the exam, and how was that? Did you immediately make six, seven figures? Talk a little bit about the journey, because I think there's a lot of people that want to get into real estate, and they've seen it, all of the shows, reality shows, and it looks like it's all about parties and it's glamour, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into it.
Yes. So I didn't start out making 100 grand in the first year. That is for sure. If that was, I would. I don't know what I'd be. I'd be
You
very
might not
happy.
be here on the show, y'all.
Right? No, I'd still be here for you, Ted. But I it was a very hard journey when you first start because the schools don't necessarily prepare you for everything that you should know. So at least in the curriculum based information, but as an agent getting started, there's quite a little outlay of money. So I purposely maintained a regular full time position until I was able to get everything paid, all the fees, and put together the marketing and everything I was looking for.
It costs money, you guys. It's like any other business. You have to invest in it. You've got money up front. I mean, and then you begin to work your sphere of influence, family and friends, and kind of get out there. And it takes a while to build that up.
Yes.
And in this particular market, which is what we're going to talk about, it's sort of it's a shift. I don't like to think it's Chicken Little, the sky is falling. I just think it's a stabilization, more of a here's some different opportunities, and we're kind of weeding out some of the people who popped in to make money. God bless them, and now they've hopped back out. So talk about the new housing market. When you think about that, what's your definition of the new housing market? How do you see it? Do you see it positive? Do you see it negative? What are your thoughts?
I see it as a positive personally. I mean, I was, an agent when everything was going off the market. And if you, as a lender, the struggles on our side as agents, but the amount of work that went into trying to submit for one client. I mean, one client we saw probably about 40 homes in a
Insane.
span of 2 months, and none of our offers got accepted, and they got discouraged and just waited. Luckily, that person's coming back, and we're starting to start again now that the market's changed. So I think for those people who are the average everyday buyer who's not like super cash, influx, they're not like super cash rich or anything, but just the average person. I think this is a better market for them in getting out there because prices have come down some. Now, everybody's not going to be 2008 again, trust and believe. That's where compliance knowledge comes in handy. It's like, yeah, we're not doing that again.
No.
But it's definitely been an adjustment. And I think that slowed us down to a good point. I think they may have overcorrected a little bit personally. But I think if this is a very good time if you're going to buy, the rates aren't 2%. I can't fix that, guys.
Yeah, I think that was just an interesting anomaly of that time frame. The whole time frame was crazy, and honestly, kudos to the listing agents too, who had to weed through 40 or 50 offers. I felt for everybody there, but I remember we had a lot of buyers. I've had a lot of buyers who are now coming back in, saying, "All right, Ted, so it's not so crazy. Let's look now," because they did get discouraged. But their interest rates are not at 2.5%, 3% anymore. And you just have to look at the long term on that. I think it's just more stable. When I got into the business 1,000 years ago, we were in double digits. So the interest rate is still historically good, solid. And I think people need to not use that as a scare tactic. Stop listening to the news.
Right. They're not your friend.
So let's talk about buying and selling strategies, because that's the topic of the show. And I love it when David came up with the topic. And it's so important because I think a lot of, let's say the realtors and lenders who have stayed in, the buyers and sellers who are now kind of looking, we have to come up with a different approach, maybe a different way of looking at things, both on the buying and selling side, because it is a different market. So you have to market yourself differently. You have to look at things differently if you're a buyer's agent or a buyer. So I'm going to let you impart your wisdom and put you full screen for a minute, David, and let you tell everybody or give us some input and insights.
So as far as strategies goes, we're just going to talk about the buying side of everything. It is important that you are always pre-approved. And when I see you pre-approved, I mean you've gone through a chunk of the underwriting with your
Amen, my friend.
So and I can't stress that enough, because as a buyer's agent, if you don't know what you need to do or what your buyer needs to do, it does a disservice to everybody in the transaction. And then you get to a week before closing and nothing's going right. Underwriting's asking for stuff that could have been solved before. You could prepare, and that's where buyer consultations are so important. And I have those with my clients, because it is imperative to know, okay, how fast are you going to be able to buy? Not how fast you want to, but will be able to, because everybody's financial situation is different. So that evaluation is important.
It's so the pre-approval thing is so important. I want to stick on that for a minute, because we do only pre-approvals. There's no pre-qualify. So it's so important, I think, for a realtor to have a relationship with the lender. But if your buyer comes with a lender, to do the research on them, because if they're out of state, out of the area, we've had some challenges with that. A lot of lenders that they don't have any kind of input in the community or any kind of boots on the ground. And so it's not a big deal if the deal doesn't close or you're a week out. We were just helping someone whose lender changed the down payment substantially and then blamed it on the news that came out about the banks, which was it was fascinating. But because that lender is not in this area, doesn't have any roots here, no relationship, and came with the buyer, the realtor was stuck. And so it's very important that you build a relationship. It's very important that you know that the difference between a pre-approval and just a pre-qual.
Yes, and I agree. And so as we move through that process, I always encourage and tell my clients, I said, I will always tell you a conservative approach, because at the end of the day, you have to pay this every month for the next, I say minimum 5 years to get your equity and everything. Life happens, so we understand if things don't work that way, but the goal is at least spend your first 5 to 7 years in that house, especially if it's your first home, because that's when you really start to do stuff into your home, and that's where it pays off in the end. But the other strategy is always, don't be afraid to ask. If you don't ask, you shall not receive. So even if it's a no, at least you know, hey, can we get a little extra in closing cost assistance? I just closed a deal last week. The seller was willing to give closing cost assistance in a substantial amount, but that won't be across the board, and it won't be for every deal. But you can ask for those things.
You have to plan to. I love that because I think it's important to work with a professional like David and with your lender, because it doesn't mean no forever, and I hate the no's. So if you have somebody who's willing to kind of go along the line, we have a lot of people in a pipeline who we're working with that are longer term. It's not a right now, or not, it's not yet, but it's not a no. And I think that's really important. They've got some credit things to fix. They've got maybe some more money to save. They've got to come up with some things that they might have to pay down, or maybe they don't pay it down. So it's really important to work through that and be ready for a long term. I think we got so used to everything was a cash deal. That's what got accepted. And then everything was immediate. And so if you didn't have an immediate pre-approval, if you weren't in it right then, you were going to miss out on your dream home. And there were all sorts of things going on. That stress is not there right now. And that's a good thing for buyers.
Yes, and I totally agree. And that's why I say, take your time, don't rush. I mean, if you have a time period and you do need to rush, I would say definitely, pick up the phone, give me a call now, or shoot me a text or something, and say, hey, I got these questions and I'm under a deadline. Let's say your job's moving you or something. Those are different conversations. But overall, I would say, prepare for at least a 3-month process to find the exact home between your approval, house search, and going under contract and getting the keys.
And work with a realtor who knows some of the upfront questions to ask. We still get referrals. I don't know if they're just testing me out or they just have a lot of buyers. But if your buyer doesn't have a job and nothing saved, it's okay to work with them long term. But to get their hopes up, thinking they're going to get a pre-approval with that, is absolutely not good for anybody in the whole scenario. And I've seen more of that lately. Like people came to me and they just had nothing. They're like, well, we thought the seller would contribute. I go, I know, but you still have closing costs. You have insurance. You have things. There's a lot of programs out there that can give 100%, like Hometown Heroes, helps with DPA and VA and USDA. But you really need to ask some basic questions of your buyers from the realtor side, I think. That way we know what we're getting into and hopes don't get raised.
Exactly. And I always ask those questions. They don't always, it's not always a positive conversation sometimes, but I always like to have that outlined. And I even keep a spreadsheet that I do send to some of my clients when they need it, to actually calculate what can they actually afford. Because some people don't know. And unfortunately, with rents being what they are, because they're really bad, as we know, you're paying for your place, you're paying it on time every month or whatever it is, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily what's best for your budget. So Correct. Just because you're paying $2,100, maybe your happy space for you to have some money after the month and not be stressed out all the time is $1,800 a month.
We don't want you to be house poor.
Exactly.
We don't want you to. All right. So talk about sellers, because that's also changed. It's shifted.
Yes. The time for sellers to ask for any wild price are pretty much over. I will say that, it's pricing your property is very important. Now, it is difficult in some times, but there's a lot of new construction. So trying to price things in certain areas that have a lot of new construction can be difficult. But as far as I go, I do mine with a system that pulls all the sales that happen through the MLS and not through the MLS. That way it gives me an overall and a better picture.
Do sellers, have you found that sellers still have an expectation that they're wondering why they don't have so many offers, or they're wondering why there has to be a price adjustment, or you actually have to do an open house? I feel like that has shifted again too, and good, because I think it's good for the market. Open houses, a lot of people don't believe in those. I like them. This is your show, so you can tell me. But I like them because it kind of gives you a good feel for the market, and it's doing something proactive that the seller really can see. It's tangible. What are your thoughts on some of the strategies? What should sellers expect from a listing agent?
Um, for what I expect from myself and anybody that on my team that comes on, I expect that you are getting all your documents up front, that you've been walked through the entire contract process, because you need to know what you're signing, and you need to know what your rights and responsibilities are as a homeowner, because you do have those responsibilities.
Sure.
And then there should be certain things. There shouldn't be so much out of pocket from the seller, unless it's some, like if you're selling a $4 million property, there may be a little upfront cost you have to pay because marketing costs are significantly different. But the average home, your photography should be covered. You should have all of your, I do a website for all of my listings. Having a few problems with mine right now, but we're working through it. But technology never works when you want it to.
Ooh, never.
But you have social media posts. There's different things. I send posts for my clients to send out for their listings when we list their property, and then when it goes under contract, and then when it closes. All those things are important because I don't know everybody my client knows. And that's my sphere of influence is here. And then my client brings their own sphere of influence. And there's probably some overlap along the lines, because most of my work is referrals. So the people that we know are probably why we're connected. And then as their sphere finds out, you never know who you're going to reach. So making sure that your seller has something in their hands to market for themselves as well, not just the website.
And then before we wrap it up, I've got two questions. First, I want to ask about you have a boutique brokerage, smaller brokerage. Talk about that, because you're also in boutiques. I feel like have an interesting it's an interesting world to live in right now, because there's a lot of activity going on with more of the big brokerages. But I feel like there's a lot of agents who feel really good about being at a boutique brokerage. Talk about what kind of agents you're trying to attract.
Okay. So, being a small boutique brokerage, I feel like there's more freedom involved, as far as not just as the owner of the brokerage, but also for the agents in certain aspects, because you're able to really, I guess I would say you could go 1,000%, because not only are you helping yourself, but you're helping the brokerage. So as you help build the brokerage, you're having a hand in putting the bricks and the mortar together to build something substantial and grow. And for me, I'm looking for agents that are looking for that. I think boutique brokerages have a special connection to the communities, because we are the next door neighbor. We're your neighbors. We're, wherever we are. And we generally have a better knowledge, hands down, in the community of what's happening. So it just draws in those people. And, my personal thing is I'm always about giving back to my community. So outside of doing business every day, I am involved in our community in different ways. And that's very important to me. So I'm looking for agents who want to do those things, build up your community, keep it established, find those beautiful aspects of your community and build on it, not just for you to make money, but just as a good deed, because it all comes back to you. And, that's why we get involved in helping, our friends and other local businesses boost their name, get their name out there, share it on social media, help them out at, farmers markets and things like that, because you never know who you're going to meet. And you never know how that one little good deed could open so many doors for you.
Yeah. I love a boutique. I mean, I love all of them, but I love the perspective. I know people who thrive in the big box, and I know people who thrive at boutique. And so just wanted to point that out, because I know you're looking at agents, and it's a good thing. And then the final thing is a personal question that I ask every guest. And you are a military brat. So this one, as you said, quote unquote, not my words. When I say the word hero to you, David, who is the first person who comes to mind?
The first person that comes to mind would probably be my dad.
Okay. Tell me why.
Well, not only is he the reason why I'm a military kid, but he's been through so many different things in his life, and he's always managed to figure a way to put his family first, but also take care of himself. And, that's very hard to find in people these days.
Sure.
And it's hard to articulate sometimes, but like he's he's the solid sounding board I have when I feel like I'm going off the rails. You know, I may not like it, but you know, because he will tell me the truth as a parent will do. But you know, sometimes that gives me perspective, and you know, it's important to have somebody that's your hero that you can trust that says it's going to give you that information and you know be very important to you and everything you do. And you know, he's helped me build my business, giving me pointers on what to do, what not to do. You know, he's been around the block, if you want to say, and his wealth of knowledge is important. So and his open heart and just you know who he is as a person is always just that one person that I know that I can go to no matter what.
Perfect. I love it. All right. Tell them the best way they can find more out about you, David, best way they can reach you.
Yes, you can find me on social media on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me at homes by _ beyond home RE on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me and you can just search Beyond Home Real Estate in the search bar. And you can also find me on the website, and you can text me at 321-947-0630, or you can email me at david@beyondhomerealestate.net.
Fantastic. That was awesome. Thank you, David. Reach out to David. He's out in the Sanford area, but he loves to do work all over. If you're an agent and you're looking to move or talk to somebody at a boutique brokerage, definitely reach out to David. Buyers and sellers, it's a new world out there, but it doesn't have to be scary when you have somebody who doesn't think it's scary. And that's a big deal. So we will see you soon, David. Thank you so much. I loved every second of it. Gave us lots of good insight. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Reach out to David, beyondhomerealestate.homes is his website. Oh, .homes. I did it. All right, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.